Hat sich natürlich aktiv betätigt und war sicherlich als Cousin.
Some stories are hidden in history books. Others are buried in shame. But sometimes a story breaks free, full of emotion and eager to be shared before it's too late. For 70 years, Johann Schmidt Jr. lived with a name he never wanted, a legacy that casts a shadow wherever he went. He was more than just a man. He was Hitler's cousin. For most of his life, he tried hard to forget this fact. But now, before he dies, Johann wants to share what he saw, what he knows, and who Adolf Hitler really was. History shows Hitler as a monster, but what if his own relative shares a different view? To understand Johann's story, we should ask, who was Hitler before the world knew him? Who is Hitler? Adolf Hitler wasn't always a monster, but that's not something people often say. Monsters are not born, they develop slowly through decisions, beliefs, and lies. Hitler was born in 1889 in Braunau am Inn, Austria. His early life was unremarkable. As a child, he enjoyed drawing and wanted to be an artist. He tried twice to get into art school in Vienna, but was rejected both times. With each rejection, his world grew darker. While wandering the streets of Vienna, broke and bitter, he searched for someone to blame. He found targets easily by reading anti-Semitic newspapers and listening to angry conversations in cafes. Over time, this hate changed his perspective, and the hateful words he heard started to feel true. When World War I began, he joined the German army as a messenger between trenches. He received medals for his service, but when Germany lost the war, he felt shattered and humiliated. This moment marked the start of his rise to power. Germany faced significant struggles in the following years, with a ruined economy and desperate people. Hitler gave them someone to blame. He joined a small political group called the German Workers' Party and quickly took control. His angry voice resonated with the public and matched their mood. He renamed the group the Nazi Party. In 1923, he attempted to overthrow the government, but the effort failed and he went to prison. While there, he wrote Mein Kampf, which outlined his beliefs filled with hate and fear, including a twisted vision of a pure Germany. Most people ignored his message, but they should not have. After he got out of prison, he changed his approach and aimed to gain power legally instead of through violence. When the economy collapsed again, he offered solutions. He promised jobs, stability, and a sense of national pride. He was patient and took advantage of people's fears. In 1933, he became Chancellor of Germany, marking the start of an irreversible change. Once in power, he ignored the rules. He eliminated rivals, shut down newspapers, and banned other political groups. Within months, democracy disappeared, and his title changed from Chancellor to Führer. Under his rule, Germany changed rapidly. Factories reopened, roads were built, and people celebrated. But cruelty was rising beneath the surface. Jewish families lost their jobs, books were burned, and people disappeared overnight. What began as slogans turned into laws, and blame became violence. The world outside Germany watched with uncertainty. This changed when Germany invaded Poland in 1939, starting the war and the most horrific time in human history. Before the war, Hitler was just another family member who attended dinners and served food. Johann remembers all of this. Before Hitler frightened the world, he made people uncomfortable, not by what he said, but by how he watched and remained silent. This is where Johann's story begins, not in politics, but at home, around a table, with a boy who would become unrecognizable. There is what the world knows about Hitler, and then there's what his family witnessed when no one else was watching. Inside the Hitler household, family dynamics. Before Adolf Hitler became well-known, he had a family. It was not a big or loving family, but it was still a family. To understand Johann's memories, we need to look inside their home. Something was wrong in those early years, before he gained power and started a war. Adolf Hitler was born to Alois Hitler, a customs officer. Alois had a quick temper, liked to control everything, and was often violent. He ran the household with strict rules like a drill sergeant. Adolf's mother, Clara, was very different. She was gentle, caring, and deeply religious. Hitler strongly bonded with her because she was the only person he truly loved. They had 6 children, but only 2 lived past childhood, Adolf and his younger sister, Paula. Paula was quiet and shy and did not enjoy the spotlight. Hitler respected her, but not as a typical brother would. It was more of a protective feeling. He rarely showed her any affection, and she noticed this too. Although they lived in the same house, they were not close. Meals were formal, and their father's voice filled the silence more than actual conversation. Hitler was not very talkative. He watched, followed the rules, and learned to blend in. Over time, he began to pull away from his family. As he grew older, he had fewer connections with them. He once said, "I am a completely unfamiliar being. That's just how I am." He truly felt this way. Even his family members became strangers as the years went on. One such family member was Angela Hitler, his half-sister. They shared the same father, Alois, but had different mothers. And Angela was born during Alois's second marriage, before he married Clara. She was about 7 years older, and they were not very close as children. Later, when Hitler gained power, Angela became involved in his life and helped manage his home. First, she did this in Munich, and then at his retreat in Berchtesgaden. She cooked, organized the staff, and kept the household running smoothly. However, even she reached her limits. Geli, Angela's daughter, was the only person he let get close to him. The story of Geli is a tragic one. She died by gunshot at just 23 in Hitler's apartment. There are many rumors about her death. Some say she was obsessed with, while others claim she took her own life. No one knows the truth, but after her death, Hitler became more distant and cold. He cut ties with family members, changing Paula's last name to Wolf to hide her connection to him, though he still supported her financially from a distance. His nephew, Johann Schmidt Jr., noticed how Hitler's behavior affected the family. People avoided mentioning Geli, and relatives feared being near him. Hitler attended family gatherings out of obligation and soon cut off all ties. Geli's memory disappeared, and even trusted family members like Angela were pushed away. By the time he became Führer, Hitler had distanced himself from all his family. Yet Johann remembered how people reacted to Hitler's presence, feeling the tension in the room. This is the side of Hitler that remained hidden from the world, a version Johann could never forget. Every infamous figure has someone who knew them before their rise. For Hitler, that person was Johann. Who was Johann Schmidt Jr.? Long before he became connected to one of history's most feared people, Johann Schmidt Jr. was an average boy in rural Austria. His family name did not hold much weight and did not affect how he interacted with others. The last time Johann saw his cousin Adolf Hitler was in 1907, when they were both teenagers. Hitler stood out, but he was not yet the threat he would later become. After World War II ended in 1945, Johann, then 18, was arrested with 4 family members by Soviet agents. They were accused of supporting Hitler's plans with no evidence against them. They were sent to a labor camp where surviving each day was a struggle. Johann lost his parents and cousins during this time, leaving him with nothing. In 1955, Johann was unexpectedly released from the camp. He returned to a changed Austria, where his home and family were gone. Although recognized, he was shunned by others. He tried to rebuild his life, aware of the weight his last name carried. For years, he remained silent, seeking peace instead of sympathy. What made Johann keep his story a secret for so long? And why did he decide to speak out after all those years? Why Johann kept silent? Johann Schmidt Jr. was quiet because he was scared. This fear was deeply rooted and complex to shake off. In Nazi Germany, if someone was accused of a crime, their whole family could be punished too. This practice is called Sippenhaftung, or family arrest. People learned to stay silent, knowing that blood could betray them. Johann learned this lesson early in life. After the war ended and Hitler was dead, Johann wasn't free. He was hunted down. In prison, interrogations happened at random times, often at night. These interrogations were more about control than finding the truth. Johann stayed silent to survive because every word could be dangerous. Johann's family slowly died in a camp, not from bullets, but from hunger, disease, and hard labor. There's no record of executions. Their deaths came from neglect, which was common in the Soviet Gulag system. After prison, Johann lived with a haunting question. What did he know? This weighed on every relative of Hitler. Some claimed they knew nothing, while others hinted at hidden truths. Did the family know about the Holocaust? This was not a single event, but a plan to wipe out a people. Between 1941 and 1945, 6 million Jews were killed, along with millions of others seen as undesirable. This started with laws and ghettos, leading to death camps like Auschwitz. Some of Hitler's relatives said they were unaware of what was happening. While we can't know for sure, Some have likely heard rumors of deportations. Johann chose silence, not out of guilt, but to protect himself and others. His trauma came not only from his own experiences, but also from watching others suffer. He carried the weight of their deaths and the guilt of surviving, raising a question that history still struggles with. We know about the crimes, but what about the cousins who stayed quiet and inherited guilt? The fate of the others. It didn't matter if you fought for Hitler when the war ended. In some places, being related to him was enough. This happened to Maria Schmidt. She was Johann's cousin, married, quiet, and not involved in politics. But her last name was Schmidt, and that was close enough. In May 1945, Soviet agents took her from her home, along with her husband, Ignaz Koppensteiner, and her brothers, Johann Sr. and Eduard, all without explanation or legal process. They were sent to Moscow. Maria spent her first weeks in Lefortovo prison, a cold stone building with little light. She faced repeated interrogations with the same questions, until she couldn't tell the difference between memory and exhaustion. Eventually, she falsely confessed that, as a cousin of Adolf Hitler, she had a connection with him. This sentence was taken word for word from her Soviet interrogation file. It wasn't true, but it was what they wanted to hear. She received a 25-year sentence of hard labor and was sent to a prison camp near Verkhneyarsk in the Urals. The cold there was severe, and she later died in 1953. Her brother Eduard lasted a little longer. He was already sick with tuberculosis when they took him in, but the interrogators didn't care. They wanted names and confessions. Eduard eventually admitted he was related to Adolf Hitler and confessed to having approved his military political plans directed against the Soviet Union. This confession didn't save him. He died in 1951 at the Verkhneyarsk hospital, with his final letter asking for proper clothing serving as evidence of his suffering. Then there was Ignaz. He wasn't blood-related, but married into the family. As Maria's husband, he became a target. Ignaz eventually died of tuberculosis in 1949 at Lefortovo prison in Moscow. Before he died, he regretted marrying Hitler's cousin and asked, "Why did I have to marry her?" He asked it not like a question, but more like a man who already knew the answer. None of them was a soldier. None of them signed orders or built camps. They were farmers and clerks, living simple lives, yet they were punished for someone else's actions. They were not executed, at least not officially, but they were left to suffer. These people died in different months and years, but all faced a system that didn't care who they really were. Now, after 70 years of silence, Hitler's cousin is finally ready to speak. When the last relative of Hitler shares their story, it reveals more than any headline could ever say. What Johann remembered? Johann always referred to Adolf Hitler as the uncle, since their fathers were cousins. A chilling memory Johann had was from when he was told how Hitler visited their family in 1907 as a teenager. He recalled Hitler calmly dissecting a frog in the garden, explaining its anatomy without a hint of emotion. Johann's father felt a deep unease while watching. As Hitler gained power, he distanced himself from his family, keeping only his half-sister Angela and her daughter Gaily close. After Gaily's death, Hitler never mentioned her name again. Johann noted that Hitler saw his relatives as inferior, leading them to fade from his life. Adolf's only full sibling, Paula Hitler, lived quietly after the war under the name Paula Wolf, avoiding public attention until her death in 1960 without children. Adolf's half-nephew, William Patrick Hitler, changed his name to William Stewart Houston and built a secluded life in America, ensuring his descendants wouldn't carry on the Hitler name. In Austria, relatives like Angela and her children similarly withdrew, never discussing their connection to Hitler. No law required them to hide, but they collectively chose to disappear, perhaps due to guilt or shame. Ultimately, time catches up with everyone. Even Hitler's legacy faced this reality. Hitler's last days. By spring 1945, Adolf Hitler's world was falling apart. Soviet tanks were moving closer to Berlin while he hid in a bunker, weak and angry, writing farewell notes and giving medals to teenage boys in the Hitler Youth. On April 20th, his 56th birthday, he briefly met the children defending the city. One observer noticed Hitler's shaking hand and empty eyes. The war had turned chaotic, with 2.5 million Soviet soldiers approaching. Inside the bunker, everyone felt the tension. They knew the truth but stayed silent. Supplies were running low, and even as Hitler ordered fake counterattacks and talked about defeating armies, no one corrected him. Hitler ordered General Felix Steiner to launch a final attack. But it didn't help because he lacked troops. When Hitler found out, he lost control and exploded in anger. On April 23rd, Hermann Göring sent a telegram saying he was ready to take over. Hitler saw this as a betrayal and had Göring removed, issuing a death warrant against him. Heinrich Himmler tried to negotiate secretly with the Allies, but was also ordered to be arrested by Hitler. That week, Hitler wrote a final statement blaming others for the war's failures and surprised those around him by marrying Eva Braun, a somber goodbye. On April 30th, both took their lives in the bunker, Eva with poison and Hitler with a gunshot. They had their bodies cremated outside, marking the end of his rule without a trial or apology. The next day, Joseph Goebbels killed his children with poison before ending his and his wife's lives. Many Nazi officials followed as Berlin surrendered on May 2nd, signaling the end of Nazi Germany. However, horrors continued after Hitler's death. Concentration camps still held prisoners, leading to more deaths even after surrender. People like Johann Schmidt Jr. remained unaware of the atrocities done in Hitler's name, feeling only a haunting silence in a changed world. Today, the Hitler family's legacy has faded chiefly, becoming a shadow with few members left, all wanting to stay hidden. The bloodline will likely die quietly, leaving questions about identity and remorse. If you had that name, would you like to erase it too? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.